Do you believe in life after death? Do you believe that we will see again those we have missed so deeply? If you don't believe it, you will change your mind after this video. We have done extensive research and now want to present to you 10 fascinating true near-death experiences that will leave you speechless. So make yourself comfortable and grab something tasty to snack on. Number 10. The heartbreaking story of Colton Burpo. The case of Colton Burpo is a fascinating story that has touched the hearts of many people. In the year 2000, the then 3-year-old boy was diagnosed with acute appendicitis. Colton had to undergo emergency surgery to prevent the inflammation from worsening and severely damaging other parts of his body. During this risky procedure, Colton had an intense near-death experience. In his account of the experience, Colton Burpo spoke of encounters with the deceased. He said, "I was in heaven, and there were many other people there." What was especially fascinating was his story of meeting his grandmother. Colton described in detail his grandmother's appearance, even though he had never seen her before, and spoke of conversations with her in heaven. Colton said with tears, "My grandma smiled and hugged me when she saw me. Then we sat on a bench and talked. I asked her, 'Where are we, Grandma?' She said to me, 'This is heaven, Colton.' Then she told me that my time had not yet come and that I had to return to Earth. But she promised me that I would see her again later." Colton's parents were astonished when their 3-year-old son told them things about his grandmother that he could not possibly have known. The incredible fact that such a young child had such real encounters with the dead made many people think deeply. Is this child's experience perhaps proof of life after death? Will we truly see our loved ones again after we die? Colton's moving near-death experience was recorded by his father, Todd Burpo, in the book Heaven is for Real, and later adapted into a touching documentary film titled Heaven is for Real, released in 2014. If you like this video, we'd really appreciate a subscription and a thumbs up. Thank you so much. Number 9. 23 Minutes in Hell. The shocking story of Bill Wiese. This story is by far one of the creepiest reports of near-death experiences. Bill Wiese is an author and speaker who gained great notoriety through his controversial book 23 Minutes in Hell. He was born on September 6, 1960, and lives in the United States. Before his near-death experience, he was a successful businessman and Christian preacher. In 1998, Bill Wiese claims he had an out-of-body experience that changed his life forever. He said that in the middle of the night, he was suddenly pulled out of his body by demons and found himself in hell. In his book, 23 Minutes in Hell, Bill Wiese describes in detail the cruel torments and immeasurable suffering he experienced during his time in hell. He recounts in an extremely vivid way how he was surrounded by searing flames and tormented by unbearable pain. Wiese also describes the feeling of hopelessness and despair that overwhelmed him while he was trapped in the darkness of hell. He also reports encounters with demonic beings who tormented him and filled him with fear. He describes their strange forms and their malevolent nature, which created an eerie atmosphere of terror. Despite his desperate attempts to find a way out, Bill found no escape from his agonizing situation. Bill said it was only through a miracle of God that he was finally freed from hell. He speaks of a sudden divine intervention and that he was given a second chance. This profound experience strengthened his faith in God's power and his conviction that even in the darkest moments of life, hope and salvation are possible. This shocking story has drawn much attention and sparked wide discussion about the afterlife and the existence of hell. Many readers were deeply shaken by Bill Wiese's descriptions of hell because he portrayed its horrors with drastic imagery and emotional detail. The story of Bill Wiese has led many people to reflect on the following questions. Does hell really exist? Do we have to pay for all our bad deeds after death? Number 8. The tragic story of Captain Dale Black. Born in 1946, Dale Black experienced an extraordinary near-death experience that changed his life forever. The terrible event occurred on December 18, 1969, when the then 23-year-old Dale, as a young pilot, crashed a plane in the mountains near Big Bear Lake, California. What a horrifying scenario. As a result of the accident, he suffered the most severe injuries and hovered between life and death. During his near-death experience, Captain Dale Black reported an astonishing encounter with heavenly beings that he described as angels. Dale said, "The angels radiated an extraordinary calm and an overwhelming presence of love. They surrounded me with a feeling of peace and security. At that moment, I was free from fear and simply happy." He also reported a wonderful feeling as he was lifted into heaven. There he experienced indescribable beauty and felt an overwhelming presence of love and light. This experience caused Captain Dale Black to question his life and his previous beliefs. He decided to share his near-death experience with the public, with the good intention of giving others hope and comfort. His book, Flight to Heaven, became a bestseller and has played a major role in making his experience accessible to a wide audience. At this point, we must inevitably ask ourselves the following questions. Is there life after death? Does such a thing as an immortal soul really exist? Number 7. The chilling near-death experience of Howard Storm. Howard Storm is a former art professor and atheist whose life took an extraordinary turn when he had a dramatic near-death experience. The then 39-year-old Howard Storm suffered from a stomach ulcer. In 1985, his condition deteriorated drastically, leading to a life-threatening situation. During this time, he experienced an out-of-body experience and encountered terrifying beings. An out-of-body experience is an event in which a person separates from their physical body. During such an experience, one floats above their own body and perceives the environment from another perspective. This phenomenon can occur during a near-death experience, during meditation, while dreaming, or even spontaneously. Howard Storm reported that during his near-death experience, he encountered dark figures. He described them as extremely threatening and frightening. These beings told him that he belonged to them and that there was no hope of rescue. They tried to manipulate and intimidate him. Howard said, "I felt completely overwhelmed by the presence of these eerie beings and their words, and at that moment I felt immeasurable fear." In his despair, Howard cried out for help and was finally saved by a divine appearance. Howard said, "Suddenly I saw a radiant being of light coming toward me. I could hardly believe it. It was Jesus Christ." Howard Storm described Jesus as full of love and compassion, who gave him comfort and strength. Jesus encouraged him to follow him and promised him safety and peace. This encounter marked a turning point in Howard's near-death experience, and he underwent a profound spiritual transformation. This incredible experience radically changed Howard Storm's life. From a convinced atheist, he became a believing Christian, eager to share his fascinating story with the whole world. What an impressive story. Number 6. Natalie Sudman's near-death experience in Iraq. Natalie Sudman worked for 16 years as an archaeologist in the United States before accepting a position as a civilian employee of the U.S. Army, where she was responsible for overseeing construction projects in Iraq. She experienced a transformative near-death experience after a bomb attack in Iraq, in which she was severely injured. During the attack on November 24, 2007, when Natalie Sudman was badly wounded, she was part of a convoy that was struck by an explosive device. The explosion caused very serious injuries, including dangerous damage to her brain and body. Natalie was in a critical condition and needed urgent medical care. While unconscious and fighting for her life, she had a near-death experience. In her book, Application of Impossible Things, Natalie describes her out-of-body experience and her encounter with a source of light. She reports a feeling of weightlessness and peace while being outside of her body. This experience led to a profound spiritual realization and an understanding of universal truths about life and death. Natalie said, "I suddenly found myself outside my body, free from the limitations of my mortal shell. A sense of weightlessness overcame me, and I felt light and free like never before. Truly fascinating. So is our body nothing more than a spacesuit we need in order to make our experiences on Earth? Just as we need a spacesuit to explore outer space? Natalie's tragic story has drawn great attention and led many people to reflect on life and death. Number 5. The near-death experience of Tony Cicoria. Tony Cicoria had luck in misfortune. In 1994, while out for a walk, he was struck by lightning. The chance of being hit by lightning is extremely small. Yet, Tony Cicoria had this misfortune. At the time, he was 42 years old and a respected physician in New York. After Tony was struck by lightning, he suffered severe burns and was declared clinically dead for a short time. While he was clinically dead, he had an out-of-body experience. He spoke of a deep and extraordinary connection with a higher power. Tony described an intense feeling of enlightenment that surged through him and filled him with overwhelming energy. This connection led to a deep understanding of universal truths and a broader perspective on life and human existence. Cicoria said, "During the time outside my body, I felt a deep bond with everything around me. I realized the immense importance of love and compassion. It suddenly became clear to me that I am part of a greater whole." He also described a kind of divine guidance that encouraged him to shape his life in a new and meaningful way. This formative experience motivated Tony Cicoria to pursue his passion for music more intensely. What an inspiring story. So are we all part of a greater whole? Number 4. The eerie near-death experience of Ian McCormack. Ian McCormack had a life-changing experience during a night dive. He was stung by a jellyfish, which put him in acute danger of death. The event took place in 1982, when McCormack was 24 years old, and working as a diver off the coast of Mauritius. After being stung by a deadly species of jellyfish, he suddenly found himself in a state between life and death. During his near-death experience, McCormack reported an unimaginable journey into hell, where he was surrounded by terrible torment and unbearable darkness. Ian McCormack said, "I was surrounded by a suffocating darkness that seemed to swallow me. A feeling of loneliness and despair overwhelmed me and pressed me down as if an invisible weight was upon me. It was so dark that I could not see or recognize anything. The darkness filled me with great panic. What a cruel thought." McCormack went on, "At that moment, I realized that I was alone and powerless, trapped in a nightmare with no escape. Yet suddenly, in the midst of this darkness, I could see a person. It was Jesus Christ. His presence pierced the darkness and brought light into the gloom. In this decisive moment, Jesus opened a way for me to be saved and gave me a second chance at life. I was so grateful." At this point, we must ask ourselves, if heaven exists, doesn't hell necessarily exist as well? McCormack's moving story was recorded in his book, A Glimpse of Eternity, and has attracted worldwide attention. Number 3. The near-death experience of Pam Reynolds. Pam Reynolds experienced an extraordinary near-death experience during surgery to remove a brain aneurysm. The event took place in 1991 when Pam was 35 years old. During the operation, her body was cooled to an extremely low temperature, inducing a state of clinical death similar to cryonics. Cryonics is the practice of freezing people immediately after death in the hope of reviving them in the distant future. While Pam Reynolds was clinically dead, she had an out-of-body experience in which she could observe herself and the doctors and even hear all the conversations during the procedure. Pam Reynolds said, "I floated above my own body and had a clear view of the operating room. I could see the medical equipment and perceive what was happening in the room, even though my physical body lay motionless on the operating table. It felt as if I existed between two worlds, on the one hand in my bodiless state, and on the other in the physical reality of the operating room. This feeling cannot be put into words. She was able to perceive all of this and recall it afterwards, despite the fact that she was clinically dead at the time. Extremely astonishing. Pam Reynolds' ability to describe the details of the surgery and the doctor's discussions so precisely amazed both the medical staff and scientists, and led to further research into near-death experiences and consciousness during clinical death. This experience was of great importance to Pam and strengthened her belief in life after death, as well as in the existence of transcendent consciousness. Here again, it becomes clear that our mortal body is only a shell, without which we continue to exist. Number 2, the near-death experience of George Rodonaia. George Rodonaia experienced a spectacular near-death experience after a severe car accident. This event took place in 1976, when Rodonaia was only 20 years old. During his clinical death, he reported encounters with angels and a life review in which his entire life unfolded before his eyes with remarkable clarity. George Rodonaia said, "I was surrounded by angels who led me into an enlightened and peaceful dimension. I was shown a life review that allowed me to view my life from a new perspective. I could not only see past events and encounters, but also feel them. The whole thing was very emotional for me." A life review is a common feature of near-death experiences, in which people can see and feel their entire life in the form of images and emotions. Rodonaia continued, "This review was not merely a replay of past events, but an exciting journey through my actions, decisions, and relationships. This life review helped me better understand the impact of my deeds on others and on myself. I realized that material things are not important, and that life is about love, compassion, and spirituality." A rather profound experience. This experience of life review during his near-death experience left a lasting mark on George Rodonaia and had a major impact on his later life. After his near-death experience, George Rodonaia turned to the study of religion and later became a respected clergyman. The story of George Rodonaia has been covered in various books and documentaries on near-death experiences and attracted great interest in near-death research. Number 1. The near-death experience of Betty Eadie. At the age of 31, Betty Eadie had an extraordinary near-death experience in 1973, during surgery that changed her life forever. During her near-death experience, she had a remarkable meeting with Jesus Christ and a spiritual journey through the afterlife. In her book, Embraced by the Light, she vividly describes the experiences and insights she gained during this time. Betty Eadie described an atmosphere of peace and unconditional love during her encounter with Jesus. Betty said, "Jesus has an indescribably beautiful aura. I felt very comfortable and safe in his presence. We talked for a long time, and he gave me spiritual teachings and insights that changed my life forever." Jesus also gave her insights into the divine nature and the beauty of the afterlife. Betty describes the afterlife as a place of light and forgiveness. Embraced by the Light became an international bestseller and sparked numerous discussions about near-death experiences. Betty's captivating account touched countless people and inspired them to reflect on spirituality and the possibility of life after death. Now we look forward to your personal opinions on this. Do you believe in life after death? Which case did you find the most fascinating? Write it down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.